Hi, I'm Jerry Holm, and I'm here to bring you Yearbook Photography 101. In this class, we're going to learn how to use the camera to create magic on your yearbook pages. But in order to do that, you're going to have to wear a lot of different hats. From math classrooms to science labs. From the science lab to the gymnasium, being a yearbook photographer requires you to wear a lot of different hats. So, where do we get started? You're going to need some equipment, so let's begin there. You can pick up a Canon R5 for just under $5,500. Or maybe, if you're a Nikon person, you would rather have a Nikon Z9, and you'll save $300 over the Canon. And then you're going to need some lenses. How about the Canon 28-70 f2, a bargain at $3,200? Or if you want a great sports lens, the Nikon 600mm is a great grab since it comes in at under $16,000. Good luck turning those requisitions into your principal. Let's look at some other options. You can go with some older models of digital cameras that will cost only a fraction of what we just looked at. There's lots of options on Amazon, and the used market can save you even more. What about your cell phones? Can you build a yearbook with just a cell phone? Sure you can. You'll have some limitations, but if you apply the principles we talk about today, it won't matter which camera you choose. You can even use the Kodak Instamatic 100. No, on second thought, let's not go there. It's not 1973 anymore. Any camera in today's digital world will give you the images you need to produce a quality yearbook with high-end photographs. So let's get started and look at some of the things we can do to create great-looking photographic images. Life is a sequence of events highlighted by those intense single moments. Let's take this color run for example. Students ran this large loop, and at certain points they had colored powder tossed on them. At events like these, I often see photographers walking around, chasing the action, and hoping to get a perfectly timed shot where everything comes together. Take a look at this image, the flying powder, the facial expressions. Everything is perfect. Did we use one of those high-speed cameras that fires off 30 shots a second, and then we picked the best one? No, we didn't have a camera that would do that. This is one shot, and the moment was captured. Here's the secret. I brought my student to this location and showed him where the light was coming from. We made sure the light was hitting their faces, not at their back. Then we waited. A few participants ran through this location. We fired off shots as they passed, but the pictures were only average at best. We continued to wait. When this couple ran through holding hands, it looked promising. Then the powder flew and my student fired off one shot. We had pre-focused. We had set the exposure and locked it in. And when the moment happened, we had our shot. On this image, we once again played the waiting game. We examined the course, and this spot was where most of the drama was taking place. When this girl came up out of the mud, we were already there. When the photo was snapped, all the work had already been done. All we needed was a subject to show up, and sure enough, our girl in the mud came through for us. When you can, wait for the shot. Pick your spot, and when you get that moment, take the picture. But you can't always predict when and where the action will take place. Take this image of these girls just before kickoff at a football game. I had my photo student with me on the sidelines, and we were waiting for the team to run out onto the field. That's always a good shot. But then we saw these girls stacked on top of each other. Two good things came out of this photo op. First, we got the picture. And secondly, my photographer was a skinny little sophomore named Robert who was very shy, and he was hesitant to get in front of the most popular girls in the school. I forced him to run over to them and get down on a knee to create a stronger viewpoint and tell them to look at him. And make sure they hear you, I told him. Be loud. And he did. And when he called out for them to look at him, they all did, and they were very expressive. Robert got the picture. But even more importantly, for a brief moment, the most popular girls in school gave all their attention to a skinny little sophomore kid and made him feel important. Robert didn't stop smiling for a long time. Here's how we use the photo in the yearbook. A 2-page spread, some diagonal crops, and a little vertical text. You just have to be alert and make sure you see these events happen because they are over in an instant. At this assembly, I had my photographers pick their spot, and I instructed them to wait for the moment and then take the shot. It's so much easier than scrambling around trying to find the right picture to take. When you can, let the picture come to you. When it does, you'll be ready. These are our 4 student body officers at a pep assembly. Me and my photographer, you guessed it, Robert, skinny little sophomore, were walking by, and I said, "How about a picture, ladies?" Instantly, Robert dropped to one knee. The 4 girls pointed down at him. He snapped the picture and we got it. It's these types of pictures that are impossible to recreate. We could have asked them to do it again, but it wouldn't be the same. You've got one chance to get these pictures, and if you don't get it on that first try, you might as well pass on by. This was during a dissection session in a biology class, and I took one of my photographers in there to see what we could capture. This picture is completely contrived and set up. We asked the student to turn the heart a little bit so we could actually see the side of it. We had them look down. We took several pictures. We made sure we were in the right place. It was very set up and very contrived, but again, big part of yearbook is pictures like these. This is another image that's completely set up. We placed the skulls in the lab. We put the skeleton in the background. We grabbed the student, had her hold another skull, and we had her look down. We shot several shots of it. If we didn't like it, we reshot until we got what we wanted. Very set up, very contrived, but it serves an important purpose. This is a page divider for our academic section. We had our class valedictorian stand in a hallway, perfectly still, while we set up a camera on a tripod and experimented with different exposures. We went with shorter exposures, longer exposures, with the intent being to capture just the right amount of blur with the moving students in the background. For this one, 1/8 of a second worked just right, and it gave us the picture a sense of motion, a little bit of dynamic action instead of just a stagnant, stoic picture that a regular page divider might have. Let's take a look at the instructions at the bottom of this page. In this instance, 1/8 of a second exposure worked well. Hallway students started disappearing at 1/4 of a second. What happens is, if you have the exposure set too long, the streaks of the students drag on and you see what's behind the students, causing them to go invisible. Let's continue here. At 1 second, there was just a few colored streaks in the hall, but it looked deserted. You see some of these large city pictures that are completely deserted, and they use long exposure photography to do some of that. That was the principle here. Number 2, primary subject must be completely still. And 3, use a tripod. This is a requirement if you want your image sharp, and not only sharp, but recognizable. So that worked really well, and it made a good page divider that was a little bit different than just your regular everyday snapshot. This is our class president who made the morning announcements every day. And this was during the 50th anniversary of our school. Every day on the announcements, she would read a little piece of historical content. And so we decided to take that concept and make a page on the yearbook. So we pulled her down into the yearbook classroom, had her stand up against the room, worked around with several different poses, and then we cut her out in Photoshop, added some colorful effects to it, put this diamond effect in the background, and put it together, making a kind of a cartoonish look out of it. Very contrived, very constructed, but very effective. And then on the side of the page, we put several of the quotes that she had used in her morning announcements. Look for an angle. In other words, use a creative point of view. For example, if somebody was walking by and saw you taking a picture, what they saw from their viewpoint would be different from what you were doing. Let's take a look at this circle of friends picture. Circle of friends, obviously I wanted to do something that represented a circle. I had the kids lay on the floor, and I took a tripod, extended it out all the way with the camera on top of it, and set the camera on a 10-second timer. The autofocus was turned on, and I held the camera extended with the tripod over the kids, and it gave me this shot. I didn't have to climb up on a chair or a table. I just used the tripod and extended it. This is a really good way to take group pictures of people. So let's say you have 100 people and you need a group picture, and you don't have any risers or anything like that. So what most people do is they make rows. They put the first row kneeling, the second row kind of squatting down, the third row standing. But if you take that tripod and extend it as high as you can on a tripod with a 10-second timer on, you'll catch every face, every expression, and everybody's looking up. And it's a really good way to take group shots. On this image, I had a student actually lay on the floor and shoot up at the girl looking into the book. We had the cover of the book out there. her face expressively, and it gave us a really creative base to wrap this page around. One of the things we did in Photoshop was we cleaned off all the gum that was stuck on the bottom of that desk. On this page, I didn't really change the point of view. I just tilted the camera and gave it a different look. Note that the picture on the left is tilted toward the right, and the picture on the right is tilted toward the left, and it draws the eye into both pages and keeps you looking at the center of the page. After the football team won the state championship, the fans ran down onto the field to congratulate the players. I took the camera and just held it up as high as I could over my head and got this image. Creative point of view can add a lot to your page and a lot to your pictures. I tell my students all the time, no snapshots. Don't just shoot like a regular tourist. Get creative. Get down low. Get up high. Make the picture interesting. But look at this image of the 5 girls at the bottom of the page. All that is an eye-level, boring, routine, everyday, standard shot with nothing creative added to it. And it works. It works well. If we had done something creative, I think it would have taken away from the picture. So just because you don't have a creative point of view, don't write it off. Because sometimes that ordinary, everyday, routine snapshot is the best shot. To follow up that idea of ordinary snapshots, let's take a look at this 2-page composite. As you look through the pictures, there's only a couple of shots here that really stand out. Most of these shots are just ordinary snapshots, shot from eye level. There's really nothing exceptional about most of these pictures. However, when these are arranged like this in a composite, it becomes a really strong image. And as we were talking about earlier, sometimes the snapshot, the ordinary eye level photograph, is the best way to go. And in most of these pictures, it's expressions, it's interactions with friends, it's smiling, laughing. These are the things that are even more important than point of view. And it works really well, especially when you put it together in a composite such as this. I remember when my kids were young, they brought home a book called My Mom is Trying to Ruin My Life. Well, as yearbook photographers, that's not the case. What is trying to ruin your life is your flash. Let's examine that a little bit further and find out why the flash really doesn't have a place in yearbook photography. We went into a chemistry classroom one time and they had a real cool graphic up on the screen, up on the Promethean board, and the room was dark and there was a kid at the front of the room on a computer. So we approached the front of the room and allowed the Promethean board to light the student. And we used that light to create something dramatic. It's backlit, yet you can see his face. You can see that he's working on the computer. And it made a very dramatic picture. Because it was dark, some people would put a flash on the camera, and as soon as you do that, you ruin this shot. You take away all the mood, you take away the emotion, you take away the drama. Allow your camera to take a longer exposure. Use that available ambient light to give you something that's a little bit more creative. Even your phone will do a good job with a situation like this. Turn off the flash on your phone, hold it up there. You can even set it to the night mode or the dark mode. Hold it super steady and take the picture. And watch the results you'll get. You'll be amazed. That same concept is utilized here. We allowed the flame to light the face of the student. And that gave us a dramatic photo that a flash would have just destroyed. After one of the football games, the school had a huge bonfire in the parking lot of the stadium. One of the students there had a pickup truck. We climbed up into the back of it, and I had my student hold that camera over his head as high as he could on an extra ultra wide angle, and we captured this shot just using available light. If we had used a flash, a few things would have happened. We would have lit up the front students, and the rest of the picture would have gone black because the flash won't reach that far, and it only would expose correctly for the students that were hit with the flash. It would not have covered the entire image. In the top image above that, at a pep assembly, the students took out their cell phones and waved them in unison, and it made for a very dramatic photo. In scenes such as this, turn those flashes off, whether it's your iPhone, whether it's your Android phone, whether it's your camera. Don't use those flashes because they will just destroy the dramatic light that is always there and always available and always there to make it work for you. In the welding shop, the light from the welder is more than enough to light the student. So on this one, we had to stop the camera way down, use a fast shutter speed, and yet not too fast because we wanted to capture those sparks that were flying across the screen. Best setting for this camera? It just depends on what you've got. Play around with it. If you don't get any streaks, make your shutter speed a little longer. If the picture is overexposed and washed out, then either adjust your aperture by closing it down or make your shutter speed faster. This is an image of a student who had a dramatic story to tell. We put her in a dark room and we lit her up on one side to give us a 2-to-1 light ratio. 2-to-1 means you've got twice as much light on one side of the face as there is the other. In dramatic cases, people use a 4-to-1 or even an 8-to-1 light ratio, and you get these dramatic, kind of gothic horror type pictures, but 2-to-1 in this image worked really well. We lit the image with these LED light panels, and we just put one of them on one side, and we put her up close to the wall, and the light bounced off the wall and gave us a little bit of light on the other side of her face. This unit is not very expensive at $281, but if you want to go even less expensive, you can grab these softbox kits for less than $100, and they work just as well. If you don't have any lights, then move her in a darkened room next to an open door and let the light from the hallway spill in. Or if you have a window, let the window light come in and give you that 2-to-1 light ratio. Once you get all your pictures and you put them in order, then you have to come up with the question of how are you going to use it in the yearbook. Let's take a look at this picture of the baseball pitcher. You can see how we placed the text and the headline above him on the right side panel. But in the left side panel, you see the empty space and you see the position of the batter on the right hand side, the pitcher balancing the picture out on the left hand side. I took one of my photographers to this game. We got behind the backstop and I had him take a few pictures. They were just standard pictures. They were fine, pictures of the pitcher throwing the ball, but they didn't leave any extra space. So I asked him the question, how is this going to be used in the yearbook? At first he didn't understand the question. And then I said, how are we going to put the text in here? Where does the headline go? Are you going to put the headline over his face? Are you going to put it over his body? Where is it going to go? Are you going to put it down in the grass and the red dirt where it gets confused? We need someplace to put the text. Once he figured out what I was talking about, he backed off and left the blue sky there for the copy. So this wasn't just an accidental thing where we got into the design stage and saw that this picture would work with a headline. It was predetermined that this empty space would be there for a headline when the picture was taken. Same concept here. When my photographer took the picture, he left some space at the top where we could put a headline in there. And then we cut out the player and left some space on the right-hand side where we could put the text. But the headline was predetermined. This is what happens in the real world. Years ago, I did a photo shoot as a Nike basketball NBA campaign, and we shot Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley. And Nike had an art director, and he sketched out all the advertisements, and we had to shoot them exactly the way he sketched it out. I know that there's one photographer who went a little rogue, and he shot some things that were very creative, but he got called in by the art director and said, "This is our plan, stick to it, don't do this again." Same thing in the yearbook world. Predetermine where your text is going to go, how it's going to work out, and try to stick to that plan. I had one girl who even took a spiral notebook to the events, and she would sketch out what she thought what the picture would look like with the headlines in it, and then did her best to conform to that. This football picture of the defensive end jumping up to attempt to bat down the pass from the opposing quarterback, we extended that image in Photoshop, added black to it, added some lightning bolts for drama, and put together a shot like this. This was not predetermined. We saw this after the layout, but we saw where we could make a creative layout with what we had, so we altered it. This full-page basketball spread on the left is very simple. Just a block picture, a black bar, and some reverse type. On the right-hand page, we were a little more creative. We cut out the player and then added the black bars. But still, these are very simple images, very simple manipulations, and we put together something that's eye-appealing. This is the school volleyball team after they won the state championship in Albuquerque. In shots like this, there's really no time for predetermining things. Things happen fast. The girls were lined up to accept their medals, and as they approached the stand, they raised their arms up, and the expressions were magnificent. What's amazing is that every girl's face is visible. So on the right-hand side, you can see how we put that together into a spread. But dramatic pictures like this, you just have to react fast. You have to be ready. You have to attempt to be in the right spot, and you can't be afraid to get down in front of people and get the picture. One more thing to note on this page, take a look at the team manager squeezed in here between two of the players. You know what that's called? Sheer luck. This is another page divider, this one for the athletics section. In this game, we had a crosstown rivalry, and they packed the stands. With a full house like this, it made for a dramatic photo. So using an ultra-wide lens, we shot so that we could get as many people in the picture as possible, and it was nice and clean. And then we just added the copy and the other pictures, and we had a page divider. A page like this has a lot going on in it. Let's start here with the cheerleader running with the flags. This happens after every touchdown, so put yourself in the right place to capture the shot. Look into the stands. There's an endless supply of photo ops in the stands, and everyone loves these shots. One of the first things students do when they get the yearbooks is look for themselves in places where they don't expect to be. And what can you say about flying confetti? Always a winning shot. And once again, it is a very predictable shot, but it does require you to make a choice. At football games, events such as this will take place after a touchdown. When you are on the field, look at where all the photographers are when your team is about to punch it into the end zone. They are congregated near the end zone. Photographing these scores is important, but if you look around, you will find plenty of other things happening at that very moment the touchdown is scored. Decide where you want to be. It's important to make sure you are in place to get these images. Let's read the text beneath the picture here. Sometimes what's happening in the stands is better than what is happening on the floor. Look everywhere. This is so true. Yet so many photographers sometimes miss the best shots of the night because all they are concerned with is the action on the floor. For this image, we used a short telephoto lens and sat across from these enthusiastic fans. I remember the year when this book with this image was handed out. A group of girls were sitting on the gym floor with the yearbook open on the floor in front of them, and they were all laughing hysterically. I looked down at what they were laughing at. It was this page. It's not hard to see why they were so hysterical. In sports photography, I always like to say the eyes have it, because if you get the eyes, then you've got the essence of the photograph. This sounds like it might not be too difficult, but to catch an athlete's eyes and to get them in razor-sharp focus takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of precision, and in some cases, it takes a lot of expensive equipment. Let's take a look at this sprinter here, coming over the hurdle, and he's perfectly focused. What does it take to get a perfectly focused picture in an athletic environment? First of all, you have to have the right equipment. So let's take a look at that. This is a very typical sports lens, a 70 to 200 f2.8. The f2.8 allows a lot of light in so you can shoot at night. The 70 to 200 is a good range for semi-normal to short telephoto, and it's great for almost any sport. Now this is Nikon's version of the lens. Canon, Sony, Panasonic, all the major companies have lenses very similar to this because this is a very classic type lens, and they all run about in this range. However, there are some less expensive options. Let's take a look at some of those. This is a Tamron, same lens, 70 to 200 f2.8. Same exact specifications. Now the glass isn't quite as high quality as those other lenses, so you may lose a little bit of sharpness, but you may not. This is a very fine lens, and it would work fine. At $1,200, it comes in at half the price, but for a lot of yearbooks, that's still out of reach. So let's see where else we can go. This is an f4.5 to 6.3, which means as you zoom, the aperture is going to get smaller. At the camera's widest setting, you're going to get f4.5. As you zoom in, it's going to close down to f6.3, which means if you try to shoot with this in a nighttime environment, it's probably not going to work very well. Now this is a lens made by Nikon for Nikon cameras, but you can find lenses like this for Canon, for Lumix, Panasonic, for just about any camera. Tamron makes some lenses that are rather inexpensive, just like this Tamron. So if you want a lens around this price, you're going to be able to find it, no problem at all. One of the other issues with this lens, however, is the focusing element. The focusing elements on lenses like these don't work real well. If they focus just on a static object out in a field or something inside, they're going to work just fine. But if you try to shoot a moving person, especially like a sprinter, it's not going to track them very well, and you're going to have a difficulty having any kind of consistency on the focus. You finally got a lens that you can afford, but it won't perform the way you wanted it to. You were hoping to be able to shoot in the field and get nice sharp pictures, but the focus won't stick when you put it on an athlete who's running or moving very fast. What do? Does it mean you can't shoot pictures like this with this type of equipment? Not at all. You just have to know the secrets. And here is the first secret. I shot this image with this very lens, and when I tried to focus on the sprinter, I had zero luck whatsoever. However, if I put the lens on manual focus and then focus on the RISD on the hurdle and lock it there and just wait for the sprinter to enter my field of focus, he's going to be razor sharp every time. The secret is to allow the lens to do what it does well, which is capture a nice sharp image, but to not allow the lens to do what it doesn't do well, which is focus on a moving object. So grab something like that RISD hurdle, focus on it, lock that focus in by putting it on manual focus, and just wait for your subject to enter into the field, and you'll get sharp, great pictures every time. Let's look at some other pictures where this technique was utilized. On this picture of the long jumper, I waited until the official entered the pit and raked the sand out. When the official was standing at just about the right place where I thought this jumper would appear in the air, I focused on him, locked it in, and then when she jumped, I just clicked it off when I feel like she entered that area of focus. Because I had a small f-stop, the field of focus was very wide, and I had no problem getting her in focus. In this picture of the volleyball player, it appears that the lens did its job and locked in on the focus as she jumped up to block the ball. But nothing's further from the truth. The lens would not focus on moving objects, so I put it on manual focus, focused on the NMAA on the volleyball net, and then when she came up to block, I already had my focus set. In this concept of the eyes have it, these pictures demonstrate that it's so important to the picture to have eyes that are in focus and that they are the center of the picture. I want you to examine the concept of black and white photography. Black and white adds a dimension that you might not have otherwise in your yearbook, and the black and white movement has gained a lot of momentum over recent years. Try converting some of your pictures to black and white and see if it adds a creative spark to your yearbook pages. In this picture of the quarterback scrambling for his life, I utilized a lens with a large aperture because we shot under the lights at nighttime. But what if you don't have a lens that has a large aperture? You only have a lens like we talked about earlier with the 4.5 to the 6.3 aperture. How are you going to use that to capture pictures at night? It's not going to work very well. But there are some things you can do. One of the little tips that I give my students is hit the games early in the year. In September, the sun doesn't go down till later, so if the game starts at 7 o'clock, you're still shooting in full sunlight, and you can usually get through the entire first quarter shooting in full sunlight. It's little secrets like that that will allow you to capture the shot without having the right equipment. Let's talk about a concept that we discussed just a few minutes earlier, and that is looking elsewhere than on the field of play for shots. Let's take this state semifinal championship game, for example. Goddard was trailing late in the game, but they made a comeback with a couple of late scores in the fourth quarter, and now they were on Artesia's 1 yard line with only a few seconds left in the game. If they scored, they would be down by a single point. This was the pivotal moment of the game. If they scored, they'd have a chance to win the game. And getting an image of that winning touchdown would be one of our key images of the day. However, when the team was in the huddle, I happened to glance up into the stands, and what I saw was a mass of humanity. Our Goddard fans standing on their feet, waiting to see what would happen. That seemed like the shot of the day. I sacrificed the touchdown, put on a longer lens, and focused on the stands. And the result was this image of the fan base. On the ensuing two-point conversion, the team failed to score, but I already had my shot. A picture of enthusiastic fans standing up and cheering their team on a Saturday afternoon. When you're photographing sports, it doesn't take long before all your shots start looking the same. If you can, vary up your viewpoints. At Goddard High School, there is a mezzanine that runs up along the second floor that provides a great place to stand and create photos. You can see from the photos here that my photographers use this mezzanine for all sports. This image of a volleyball player reacting emotionally is a perfect example of why you shouldn't put the camera down after the play is over. I see it all the time. A player completes a great play, and they bring the camera down from their eye. Often, this is when you will get the best shots of the day. Look for those emotional responses. Add those images to your typical sports photos, and you'll have some variety on your sports pages. It's time to talk about more tricks of the trade. When you're shooting softball and baseball, one of the most difficult plays to capture is the coverage of the ground ball. The ball is hit sharply to the infielder. In this case, let's say it's a shortstop, and you have to react quickly with your camera in order to get the shot of him or her fielding the ball. It's a tough shot to capture, and to pile more difficulty on this shot, it doesn't happen very often. In fact, I've seen games where the infielders rarely have the ball hit to them. So the question is, how do you get sharply focused photos of the infielders making plays? The answer is really pretty simple, but you must never tell anyone how you did it. Is this trick a photographic cheat? Maybe, but it works and you will get the shots you need. All you have to do is shoot the infielders as they warm up between innings. Every inning, when they go out to take the field, the first base person will throw some ground balls to second base, then to the shortstop, and then to third base. Those players will scoop up the ground ball and fire it back to first base. In the photos, it will look just like game action. The only difference is you'll have great focus in every image because you will know exactly where the ball is going on each play. Golf is another tough sport to photograph. You have to be silent, you can't get close to the action, and it is a great distance between holes. And golfers are funny about having their photo taken during a tournament. I guess it's a mental thing with them. Anyway, here's the trick to getting great golf photos. See the team picture at the top of the page? After we shot that, we had the players pose for us on the course. When they were hitting the drivers off the tee, we didn't even use a ball. This way, you can get as close to them as you like, and you'll never get hit with a ball or have one shatter the lens on your camera.